Hello and welcome to the special edition of World Today from Italy, a country very close to the United States of America today. The conversation and the reports we're going to put out today is not to do with Giorgia Meloni and Donald Trump or Giorgia Meloni and Elon Musk. It has to do with what Elon Musk is doing on the ground in the United States of America with regards to Department of Government efficiency. In the most recent development and action taken by DOGE, they have cancelled and rescinded funds that were being sent out to various countries as part of America's soft power projects. And in this case, 21 million rescinded for projects to do with electoral processes and voting in India. That certainly now has amounted to allegations now being leveled against the previous administration in the United States of America of election interference. Here is a report.
Let's do it again.
We missed you. We missed you a lot.
3 days after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the US President and his key cabinet members in Washington, D.C., the Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk on a social media post, announced cancellation of funds to 15 different international research projects. One of them was to India. It was a $21 million grant to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening for voter turnout in India. Funded by USAID, one of the agencies and the Election Commission of India signed a memorandum of understanding in this regard on 17th May 2012. It has stirred up a hornet's nest in Indian politics. Then Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi, while accepting the MOU, signing denied reports of US agency funding for raising voter turnout in India or of receiving any funds in that regard. In a series of posts in X, the former election commissioner clarified that the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, or IFES, was one of the many other agencies and election management bodies that facilitated training at ECI's IIDEM, which has just been set up then. But BJP argued that IFES is an organization linked to George Soros's Open Society Foundation, funded by USAID, and the UPA government enabled infiltration of Indian elections for voter turnout. This has started a war of words between Congress and the BJP.
In the past, we've seen certain political parties, like the Congress, even engaging with organizations like Cambridge Analytica, which was with an attempt to somehow create some kind of influence that may change around or interfere with the election process. Now you have this 21 million. So certainly if anyone has received money under it, that has to be made clear.
ये पैसा कहाँ आता था, किसके पास आता था, किस संगठन को जाता था, ये सारी मालूमात होनी चाहिए और ये जिम्मेदारी भारत सरकार की है. सिर्फ इसलिए कि उन्होंने मिस्टर मास्क ने कोई बयान दे दिया, उसके बुनियाद पे किसी को भी बदनाम किया जाए, वो गलत है.
Elon Musk and his team had the full backing of the US president for this work.
I'm very proud of the job that this group of young people, generally young people, but very smart people, they're doing. They're doing it at my insistence. It would be a lot easier not to do it, but we have to take some of these things apart to find the corruption. We found tremendous corruption.
Elon Musk himself has defended his team's work as the necessity of the hour to weed out corruption from the system.
I think some of the things we're doing also will be hopefully helpful to other countries, because with the new administration, there's less interest in interfering with the affairs of other countries. I think there's the times the United States has been kind of pushy in international affairs, which may resonate with a number of members of the audience. And I think we should, in general, leave other countries to their own business. And basically, America should mind its own business, rather than push for regime change all over the place.
Not only India, this has caused quite an unrest in 15 other projects involving many other countries. Bureau Report, India Today.
Not only India, DOGE has also cancelled projects worth $29 million for Bangladesh's political landscape and also for Nepal, $39 million that the previous administration was putting in for fiscal federalism and biodiversity conservation. While Elon Musk is being criticized back home, he still has the full backing of President Donald Trump.
DOGE announcement cancelling funds to 15 projects have hit the Indian subcontinent hard. Not only India, Bangladesh and Nepal are also affected. The US government has rescinded $39 million in aid earmarked for Nepal's fiscal federalism and biodiversity conservation programs. Around $29 million intended to strengthen Bangladesh's political landscape was also cancelled. Taking to social media, one of the members of the Economic Advisory Council to Indian Prime Minister Sanjeev Sanyal also called USAID biggest scam in human history. The US president appointed the Tesla CEO to unearth this.
If it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it.
DOGE and its activities have caused a lot of furor in US domestic politics as it threatened job cuts for workers who handle everything from securing the nation's nuclear weapons to caring for military veterans. Trump's campaign of radically shrinking the bureaucracy has caused protest on the streets. Democrats argue the cuts are driven more by an ideological assault on federal agencies long hated by conservatives. The fight against Musk-headed DOGE has reached the courts. Last Friday, a federal judge extended a block on DOGE from accessing payment systems in the U.S. Treasury Department. A day later, DOGE announced cancellation of funding in international agencies benefiting foreign countries including India, Nepal and Bangladesh. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what is USAID, which has been in controversy for the past few weeks because of Trump's crackdown? My colleague Akshita Nandagopal with these details on what this USAID projects are really about and what it means for every country which has received funds from USAID.
The Trump administration has frozen United States Agency of International Development, or the USAID operations, crippling the world's largest humanitarian programs. But what is USAID and why has it become Trump's latest casualty? Let's begin from the very start. Why was USAID created? Well, it was established by President John F. Kennedy during the Cold War in 1961 to counter Soviets' influence through foreign assistance. Congress passed the Foreign Assistance Act to formalize this effort, making USAID an independent agency. Although the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, USAID continued to thrive, playing a key role in US foreign policy, albeit a controversial one. So I know you're all wondering, what does USAID do? Well, it's by far the largest humanitarian and development arm of the US government, with a workforce of approximately 10,000 people around the world and an annual budget of tens of billions of dollars. In some regions, it supplies food, shelter, and access to clean water. In others, it supports global networks of disease surveillance and biomedical research that help local populations. Critics say that USAID has practiced a form of soft power worldwide, allowing America to keep a friendly presence in developing countries, including countries that are key strategic allies. So which countries are we talking about here? Well, the USAID had projects in around 130 countries in 2023, according to the Congressional Research Service. In 2023, 70 of the 77 countries the World Bank determined to be low and lower middle income countries received USAID assistance. The scope of USAID's work is extensive: war relief in Ukraine, peace building in Somalia, disease surveillance in Cambodia, vaccination efforts in Nigeria, HIV prevention in Uganda, maternal health assistance in Zambia. I can go on and on. That list is very, very long. So did USAID also have a role in India? Well, several reports indicate that over the last 15 years, USAID granted more than $270 million to organizations affiliated with George Soros. One such organization, the East West Management Institute, partnered with Soros's Open Society Foundations and received USAID funding. This revelation has fueled concerns over the US government's role in political movements. In America, a Senator, John Kennedy, has claimed that USAID also funded transgender clinics in India. And then you have a former US State Department official, Mike Pence, who's claimed that he has proof of USAID's direct interference in Indian affairs and how opposition-fueled protests were funded. All of this has led to the BJP alleging that USAID-funded organizations that created unrest in India.
कांग्रेस पार्टी यूएसएड और सोरोस फाउंडेशन के साथ मिलकर देश को टुकड़े टुकड़े करना चाहती है। मेरा आपके माध्यम से सरकार से आग्रह है कि इतने वर्षों में यूएसएड ने जिसको पैसा दिया उसकी जांच हो और उन सबों को सलाखों के पीछे रखे। आपने मुझे मौका दिया। जय भारत।
So where does all this money come from? Well, the Congress approves USAID's funding each year. The humanitarian agency then works with Congress and the White House to set its investment priorities, while the State Department provides it with foreign policy guidance. The money is paid out through grants, through contracts and cooperative agreements. In 2023, the agency disbursed a whopping $44 billion. Ukraine was the top recipient, receiving almost 37% of that funding. Close to $17 billion in USAID funding in 2023 went to addressing governance issues, is what has been quoted, noting that most of that, again, was headed to Ukraine. Additionally, around $10.5 billion went to addressing humanitarian issues. $7 billion was set aside for health, $1.3 billion went to agriculture. Other major programs funded or managed by USAID in 2023 include $811 million for the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria, and more than $330 million in emergency food and nutrition assistance for Afghanistan. So if they're doing so much humanitarian work, why is Trump against USAID? On January 20th, his first day in office, Trump issued an executive order implementing a 90-day freeze, a 3-month freeze on foreign assistance programs. According to the order, and I'm reading it out, the United States foreign aid industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interests and in many cases antithetical to American values. Tech billionaire Elon Musk, who helms the Department of Government Efficiency, has fired off a series of posts on X that accuse the agency of corruption, referring to them as a criminal organization and a crazy waste of money. Trump has been a long-time critic of overseas spending. During his first term, Trump sought to cut foreign aid spending by a third, but his efforts were thwarted by the Congress. In response, his administration used budget freezes and other tactics to restrict the flow of already approved funds. This move was later ruled illegal under the Impoundment Control Act by the General Accounting Office. So clearly another legal battle looming. The fate of USAID at this point remains 100% uncertain.
The US military has been rather busy these few weeks, taking and carrying deportees from one country to the other from the United States of America. In fact, the latest and the third flight from the US to India carried 112 deportees, now with the total number amounting to 332 from America to India. It is not just India. Various South Asian countries and Latin American countries have felt the wrath of Donald Trump's policies against illegals. In fact, there are countries like Sri Lanka, China, Pakistan, who refused to take in some of the deportees, and Donald Trump made sure that they're sent to Panama. There are countries that are being looked at to ensure that deportees are sent or illegals are sent to those countries rather than staying in the United States of America, because that, under Donald Trump, is no longer an option.
It is not just India. Under Trump 2.0, the US has sent undocumented immigrants from several Asian countries whose governments have refused to accept them to Panama. A military plane carrying 119 immigrants from countries including Afghanistan, Iran, Uzbekistan, China, Sri Lanka, Turkey and Pakistan flew from California to Panama City. Deportations of illegals have taken flight under Trump 2.0. The first flight carrying detained, undocumented migrants arrived at the Guantanamo Bay U.S. naval base on February 4th. The Trump administration said that flight carried alleged members of the Venezuelan gang but did not disclose specific charges or convictions. 2 days later, on 6th February, a deportation flight from Louisiana landed in Callao, Peru, carrying 106 Peruvian citizens who were detained in the United States for immigration violations.
They maltreated us. Thank God we are okay now.
The Peruvian foreign minister says that US authorities have deported 140 Peruvian nationals since the beginning of February. On January 24th, Mexico denied a US military plane carrying 80 migrants access to land. However, it allowed 4 government-chartered flights carrying deportees to land later the same day. On January 26th, the Colombian government barred 2 military planes carrying its citizens deported from the US from landing. Bogota said it would send its own planes to bring migrants home. A total of 265 Guatemalans arrived on 3 flights, 2 operated by the military and 1 a charter on January 27th. On January 20th, a flight arrived in Brazil with deported immigrants in handcuffs. A US military plane carrying 72 deportees landed in Honduras on February 1st. Since his return to the White House, Donald Trump has declared that he aims to deport millions of criminal aliens for now. It looks like that he's charging ahead with that plan. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, Europe and Ukraine are up in arms against US President Donald Trump. What for? Because the US is holding peace talks with Russia in Saudi Arabia to do with the Russia-Ukraine war. This is almost like the Swiss peace summit that had taken place, with Switzerland hosting European countries and Volodymyr Zelensky keeping Russia out. Things are not looking good for Europe right now, and Europe certainly not comfortable with the proposals being made by US President Donald Trump. An emergency meeting was also called by European leaders and countries. But how much will that impact how Donald Trump is looking at Russia-Ukraine war is something we'll have to wait and see. Take a look at this report.
The US and Russia are going to talk peace with Saudi Arabia to end the war in Ukraine.
We will listen to our American interlocutors and of course we will be ready to respond. Then we will report to our leaders who will decide on the next steps.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz are all set to meet Russian negotiators in Saudi Arabia. There would be a third US negotiator, Steve Witkoff, a billionaire real estate developer and a friend of US President Donald Trump. Witkoff was in Moscow last week to secure the release of a US teacher imprisoned on charges of marijuana possession, and he spoke to the Russian president.
I think he wants to stop fighting. I see that. We spoke long and hard. Steve Witkoff was with him for a very extended period, like about 3 hours. I think he wants to stop fighting. They have a big, powerful machine, you understand that. And they defeated Hitler and they defeated Napoleon. You know, they've been fighting a long time. They've done it before. And but I think he'd like to. I think he would like to stop fighting.
But Ukraine is not part of this talk in Saudi Arabia.
Maybe there is something at the table, but not on our table. So I didn't see any invitations, envoys, and etc. from Ukraine to meet with some other envoys. But anyway, envoy, this is that national. I mean, this it's security advisor and so we don't have any papers, any invitations.
One of the three American envoys, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, reached Riyadh for the talks on Monday morning. But it is clear that the U.S. believes in talking with Russia directly in the absence of Ukraine and its major supporter, the European Union.
That's one of the reasons I'm up here talking to people. One of the reasons we're going out, we're doing it, to making sure that their positions are well known, that when we go into these positions, they're well stated. Now, that may be great, like fingers on a chalkboard. That may grate a little bit, but I'm telling you something that's really quite honest. So if you, part of the problem that we looked at when you looked at Minsk too, there was a lot of people at the table that really had no ability to execute some type of peace process, and it failed miserably. So we're not going to go down that path.
Volodymyr Zelensky and his wife reached Abu Dhabi on Monday. This is Zelensky's first trip to the UAE since the war began. In a statement on the Telegram network, the Ukrainian president said that the priority of his visit was to return more Ukrainians from Russia captivity, as the UAE plays a crucial role as a broker in the prisoner exchanges between Kyiv and Moscow. Ukraine has also warned that any deal made in its absence would not be acceptable. France is preparing for an informal meeting on Ukraine in Paris. Leaders from France, Germany, Italy, Britain, Poland, Spain, the Netherlands and Denmark, along with the European Union leadership and the NATO Secretary General, will attend this meeting.
There is a wind of unity blowing over Europe as we perhaps have not felt since the COVID period. Europeans were united last Wednesday in Paris, this weekend in Munich, and on Monday around the President of the Republic.
It is a tense time in Europe, and all eyes are fixed on Riyadh for the peace talks, minus the Ukraine and European Union. Bureau Report, India Today.
And here are some other stories from across the world in World at a Glance.
A court in Singapore found Opposition Workers' Party leader Pritam Singh guilty on 2 counts of lying to Parliament. This verdict could see him barred from contesting a general election to be held later this year. Singh had pleaded not guilty. The prosecution has asked for a maximum fine of Singapore $7,000 for each charge. Under Singapore's constitution, anyone fined at least Singapore $10,000 or jail for at least 1 year could be disqualified as a member of parliament and will become unfit to run in an election. Mohsin Hendricks, known as the world's first openly gay imam, was shot dead in South Africa on Saturday morning, according to local police. The 57-year-old cleric who ran a mosque in Cape Town for marginalized Muslims was killed in an ambush. Authorities reported that 2 unidentified assailants with covered faces fired multiple shots at the vehicle carrying Hendricks. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un paid his respects at a family mausoleum in Pyongyang on Sunday to mark the birth anniversary of his late father and former leader Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il's birthday, which falls on February 16th, is widely celebrated as a major holiday in North Korea, called the Day of the Shining Star. But it was the first time in 4 years that the son and the current head of the state visited the Kumsusan Palace of Sun, which houses the embalmed bodies of his father and grandfather, for the anniversary. Hundreds of Russians lined up on Sunday to lay flowers on the Putin critic's Alexei Navalny's grave on the first anniversary of his death. Navalny died in custody in Russian Polar Penal Colony a year ago. Russia's most prominent opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, allegedly collapsed and lost consciousness at the penal colony north of the Arctic Circle, where he was serving a long jail term. His legal aides have been complaining about his frail health long before he died, but the Russian authorities and court did not pay heed to them.
That's all in this edition of World Today from Italy. We'll be getting you all the latest developments in the world of international affairs from various parts of the world. This time it's here in Italy. Stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates after this short break. Goodbye and take care.